If you're a gamer of any type, there's usually a set that you become obsessed with, whether it's card games with a certain type of cards, or a backing, or a certain type of card from a certain era, or a certain deck, or whether it's with miniatures, whether it's a particular game system, or a particular manufacturer for or a particular period in historical gaming, especially. You become very fixated with that, and you become almost obsessed with it. Today we'll be talking about one of the things I'm obsessed with, because I'm obsessed with a lot of things. So gather around, children, as we discuss my obsession with Warhammer Historicals. So my interest in Warhammer Historical came about when the first books came out in 1998, starting with Warhammer Ancient Battles. At the time, I was playing basically all of the GW Games Workshop games, which included 40k, fantasy, all the specialist games like Blood Bowl, Epic, Battlefleet Gothic, Warmaster, all that stuff. And because previously I had played historical games in general, whether it was De Bellis Antiquitatis, Shaco, a lot of the older games from the 80s and early 90s, I felt that Games Workshop moving into the historical market was good for me, because I was already familiar with a lot of the game systems that they used in the Warhammer historical range or line. And for instance, Warhammer Ancient Battles came out initially, like I mentioned, in 1998, and it was basically, at the time, it was based off, I believe it was, I want to say, 5th or 6th edition fantasy battle, but obviously without all the fantasy elements, magic, some of the monsters, things like that. In some of the supplements, there was a little bit of fantasy, like like they had the 7 samurai list that you could have taken, things of that nature. But for the most part, it was basically more historicals, and seemed to be a side project of a lot of the designers at Games Workshop at the time. So recently, unfortunately, I did sell a lot of the books. So, well, actually all of them. So I had to start from scratch when I decided to start getting the books again. And with a lot of things, when I get into something or have an interest in something, I try to be a complete completionist. So I kind of want all the books, especially from Warhammer Historical, even though all of them are out of print at this point. And as you can see from this starting image, these are the main books from the series, which includes Warhammer Ancient Battles, which was around 1998. I'm not too sure on the dates. It's been a while, and I'm too lazy to look. Those Legends of the Old West in 2004, Warmaster Ancients in 2005, Legends of the High Sea 2008, The Great War also in 2008, Trafalgar in 2009, Gladiator in 2011, Kampfgruppe Normandy, sorry for the pronunciation, 2011 also, Waterloo in 2011, and finally Richthofen's Flying Circus in 2012, because Warhammer Historical did close shop around 2012. I believe it was May, but I'm not 100% sure. From all of these, Warhammer Ancient Battles is probably still it's still going. Actually, there's a lot of tournaments using these rule sets, and there's also a lot of supplements in regards to Warhammer Ancient Battles, so you can still find them a lot. And it was probably the most produced rule set, so they're easier to find. Funny enough, I don't have any of the books yet. I started collecting some of the more obscure books first. From this list, supplements were made for Warhammer Ancient Battles, Legends of the Old West, Warmaster Ancients, The Great War, and I believe that was it. The ones that don't have any supplements, and were basically only one book from this list, I do have the Trafalgar, I do have Gladiator, and I do have Waterloo. The one I don't have is Legend on the High Seas. or Richthofen's Flying Circus. Legends High Seas you can find on eBay. I just haven't bought it yet. And the prices for most of these books range from about $30 to sometimes over $100, depending on the book, especially for the supplements. Warhammer Ancient Battles is probably the most numerous because they made so many supplements, and it's the oldest out of all of them, so it was in print for a long time. So that those range between about $30 to maybe close to $100, usually $75 to $80, depending on the book itself or the supplement. So it's not, they're not hard to find, to be honest. Trafalgar comes up once in a while, probably more often than all the other ones, and that one's usually about close to $100 if you look. Gladiator, I just happened to stumble upon, and that one's hard to find. It doesn't come up very often, from what I can see. Same thing with Waterloo, although I think I've seen more Waterloo books than I have Gladiator books. And the Richthofen's Flying Circus I have only seen once in being sold, so I still have not seen it. That was a very limited run. It was actually one of the last books published by Games Workshop, so it's really hard to find because they didn't do a big run on it. Like I said, most of these books range in price, but the hard to find ones, which is basically Richthofen's Flying Circus and a couple of the supplements, which I'll mention once we get to those, they really fetch a high price. And by high, it varies on your definition of high. High to me, for these books anyway, is usually about $150 to $200. And we'll get into that once we talk about the other books and their supplements first. I'll talk about Warhammer Ancients last because, we'll talk about it first actually, because it has the longest and the largest amount of supplements. The picture you see for Warhammer Ancients is that's the second edition. I believe there are two versions of the second edition book, but this was the last one before they stopped printing it. So the supplements for Warhammer Ancient Battles, there's a lot of them. There's Armies of Antiquity, which also had a second edition, which is what you're seeing on the screen when right now with that bluish marble coloring. And then there was Fall of the West, Chariot Wars, and going by the titles you can kind of figure out what period they're covering. So Armies of Antiquity, and the image also was Republican Roman. Fall of the West is late Imperial Rome, I believe it was. Chariot Wars is biblical. English Civil War, obviously Alexander the Great. Armies of Chivalry. Art of War is both Chinese, basically, warring states. Byzantium, El Cid, Hannibal and the Punic Wars, Shield Wall, Siege and Conquest, which covers a lot more than it does. The cover art shows medieval siege, but you can use it for almost any pre-gunpowder siege warfare. Spartacus, Age of Arthur, and finally Vlad the Impaler was the last book, I believe. I'm not 100% sure on the published dates. I think I have it in the right order, but you never know. I don't have any of these books actually, so this is a big chunk of what I'll probably start documenting on this video vlog, and what I'll be looking for. There is a local con and big cons like Adepticon, LVO. I don't usually go to, which LVO is the Las Vegas Open, which is a big 40K event and Age of Sigmar event, but they also have some historical games, and there's a lot of vendors there. And there are some usually that sell some older books. I have not been to Historicon or any of the big historical conventions, especially back east, because I am located on the West Coast in Southern California. But the local HMGS, the Pacific Southwest, does a con every year. And there's a local con that does 3 times a year around February, May, and September. And they usually have a good selection of books that I can look at see if I can find any books. I'd rather go there first before I start buying on eBay, see what they have, and see what I can get for a much cheaper price than you see online. So So I'll probably really start going into trying to start collecting the Warhammer Ancient Battles line probably around President's Day weekend, which is when the first con happens for the year. I'll be at Las Vegas Open this year, depending when this video comes out. So I'll look and see if anybody there is selling anything. If not, then if I go to Adepticon this year, which I don't know if I will or not, there's also some books there once in a while, and like the vendors. Not too many, but you never know. And we'll see what I can find that route and see if it's as cheaper or as expensive, sometimes even more expensive than what you see on eBay or other sale sites. So probably in February is when I'll start really going hard into trying to get all these books and try to have the collection. So hopefully I'll have an update after I get the first couple of books, just to let people know. But so far I have none. So out of this group I have 0. So we'll see how that goes. Next in line I would look at I'll talk about is the Warmaster Ancients. I have played Warmaster. I do have the Warmaster. I know there's the Warmaster fan made. I think it's Warmaster Revolution is what it's called. I probably wouldn't play Warmaster Ancients anymore because I'll just play Hail Caesar since it's more or less the same game system. In essence, the Hail Caesar, Pike and Shot, and Black Powder, the command and control is a little similar to the original Warmaster, so there's not much difference. If you've played one, you've played them all, and if you played any of those game systems, you more or less have the gist of Warmaster. The only difference are the units and unit types and the special rules, but that was carried over from this Warmaster Ancients to Warmaster to Warhammer Ancients, Hail Caesar, Black Powder, all things of that nature. I do have the main rulebook for Warmaster Ancients. I do have both of these supplements. So this collection, this portion of the collection is complete. So I do have Warmaster Ancients, and I have the ancient armies and the medieval armies. So I could play it at any point, but at this point, I just have them just to have them. If I wanted to play Warmaster Ancients, in all honesty, I would probably just play Hail Caesar because it's a more up-to-date version, in my opinion, of Warmaster Ancients. And if I want, like with the Warhammer Fantasy Battle coming back from Games Workshop, I'm probably gonna build a 10mm armies and just use either Warhammer Fantasy Battle again, or just check out the new Warmaster. I'm pretty sure it's Warmaster Revolution, and see about those. And there's other game systems out there that now do have fantasy rules, so I'm curious about trying those out. Or I just may make my own. Who knows? But that's Warmaster Ancients. Again, that's basically what I have on hand. For Legends of the Old West, I have the main rulebook. I believe I have the Alamo supplement. Actually, I should check. But yes, so I do have the Alamo supplement, and that's the only one I have. So I don't have Frontier or Showdown. Those come up frequently on eBay and other places, so they're not too hard to get. It's just a matter of when to get them and how much they're going for. Again, I will be checking the local cons and local shops first to see if any of them have it. If you played Games Workshop's Middle-earth strategy battle, then you already have the gist of Legends of the Old West. Again, they both share a lot of the same elements in terms of how they play. If you played one, you played the other. There's a lot of similar elements to both of them, especially in terms of the stats and how the game mechanics play. So there's a lot of borrowing between the two because they were both developed in the same studio at the same time. It was enjoyable. Again, with this, they like to include the historical personalities from that time period. Again, I have Alamo, but I still need Frontier and Showdown, and then that portion of the collection will be complete. Now, I mentioned that some of the books are really expensive because they're really hard to find. The one and only supplement for the Great War which is very hard to find, is the Over the Top supplement. And that one was another one along with Richthofen's Flying Circus. Both were produced at the very end of Warhammer Historical, so that it is difficult to find. It does not come up very often, and usually when it does come up, the lowest I've ever seen it was maybe $150, and I couldn't get it at the time. The highest I've ever seen it was $500, and that is no longer around anymore. So someone paid $500 to get it, which surprises me. But so like I said before, I do have the Great War, basically World War One, and the supplement for that one is Over the Top. It is very difficult to find, does not come up very often on eBay. It comes up more often than Richthofen's Flying Circus, so I always keep an eye out and have my alerts for when that does come up. So I don't really think I'll have a problem with getting a lot of the stuff that I'm looking for. The two biggest ones that I'm kind of know that it's going to be a while is Richthofen's Flying Circus, as I keep on mentioning, and Over the Top supplement for the Great War. Even the Great War itself, there's not too many copies out there, and there are a couple, and it comes up more often than not, but it is one that's not as numerous as the others. The others were easier to get, and like I said, Warhammer Ancient Battles is so commonplace. It's, but even then, I mean, the lowest price I've seen them is maybe $30, not including shipping. And depending where you're getting it from, the shipping cost can be very expensive, almost as much as the book itself. So I'm looking forward to it. I do plan to keep people updated on my progress in all this, because as opportunities arise, I hope to be able to get the books. Again, I'll probably have another update in about a month. As always, thank you for listening and watching. Don't forget to subscribe and like. It's a bit. I know it's been a while since I put out a video, because this is technically only my third one, depending on when you're listening to this. but I will try to get at least one a month out, whether it's an update or something I got. I bought for my historicals or for whatever. But I appreciate everyone that listens, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.